Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order.
Please rise and join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let the record show all board members are present and accounted for, and no action was taken in closed session. At this moment, I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Move on to communications. Members of the public may address the Board of Trustees regarding any agenda item during board consideration of that item. Please note that if you wish to address the Board of Trustees on an agenda item, you should do so when the specific item is called for by the board president. What you want to do is submit a comment. To submit a comment in person, please complete a public comment card. You can also provide your feedback via online, via Assembly Gamut, or in the live chat feature of YouTube. Comments online will be read by the board assistant, and all remarks are limited to 2 minutes in duration. With that, this is now a time where you can address the board on the public may address the board on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that we cannot take action on that item because it has not been agendized, but do know that we are listening and will, at the appropriate time, do what we can to address your concerns. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on an item that is not on the agenda? No folks online. Okay, then we will move forward to reports, and we'll start with the Robla Education Foundation.
Mr. Raven asked me to share with you that the foundation placed the online Terrific 10 Scholastic order today, and the box should arrive from Scholastic should arrive right after the break. And there's nothing else to report at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, now we have the Robla Teachers Association, CSEA, Superintendent's Report.
Good evening. Just a few things. Last week was a really, really busy week, but it was exciting. Tuesday, September 30th, there was a community planning session held at Taylor Elementary that was hosted by council members Dickinson and Kaplan. Thursday, October 2nd, we had another wonderful turnout for our parent empowerment dinner where Dr. Art Pimentel, the president of Folsom Lake College, was our guest speaker, and we participated in something different. We did a Q&A session, so that was nice. And then Saturday, we had two events simultaneously. We had the 4th annual Walk for Health, where Glenwood Elementary and Taylor Elementary were awarded $1,000 each donation from the Health Education Council. And then Glenwood Elementary had a tree planting event. First time ever. I'm super excited. Ms. Cardona and I planted maybe the 3rd tree from the gate, and we named it Matthew. So I believe a total of 13 or 14 trees were planted, so it was really exciting. But after one tree, I left to go to the walk. And they were saying, gosh, you're going to feel it. I'm like, I did feel it in the afternoon. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank our staff. I want to thank our parents who completed our education benefits form by Census Day. It really was a big effort by all our staff, and I appreciate our parents. I know many times a site or the district office might have called in a house more than once, but we really met our goal. So we were super excited, and I just want to say thank you. During this time, strategically, we had attendance challenge. We had 2 winners, right? The first winner was the highest participation in attendance on Census Day, which was October 1st. So that will be announced tomorrow in my phone message. So read my phone message to find out who the winners. And the second winner will be announced after fall break because the last day for the attendance challenge is tomorrow, October 10th. As Mr. Raven said, I had a great, terrific 10 lunch yesterday, and always explore the opportunity for them to order their books from Scholastic in a gift from the Robla Education Foundation. So I'm super excited to hear that he already placed the order. That means all 10 kids put their order in. Tomorrow, parents remember, it is Monday because next week is fall break. And today we finalize Maine's groundbreaking ceremony. So that will be on Friday, October 24th at 8:30 a.m. So it'll be a nice groundbreaking, and we're going to have, we'll send some, put that on your calendar, send invitations, and then we'll have students participate as well. So it'll be a nice event. But that will be Friday, October 24th at 8:30 a.m. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to board member reports. We'll start with Trustee Devine.
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Cardona.
As the superintendent said, last week was pretty busy, and I was privileged to be part of almost everyone, all the events that she mentions, and it was real nice to participate with the community and be part of the Glenwood tree planting. We was the first one in finish with all the group, plant the whole tree from the scratch for the beginning, and it was great. We call it Matthew because we have a little kid over there who's 4 or 5 years old that thinking he will be available to see the tree growing. And that's the reason we call him Matthew. But we had the empowerment dinner. It was great. The food was excellent. It was awesome. And we also participate in the walk in the Robla Community Park. And it was also well attended with the community.
Trustee Hamilton Starks.
I have nothing to report, but I would like to add that maybe we can have 2 winners in the Independence Challenge, one for growth and one for just win-win.
Right. Trustee Barnes.
I was able to attend the event at Taylor Street School with council members Dickinson and Kaplan, and it was definitely interesting. I don't think it fully hit the mark for the community, but that's okay because I think just being at the event and hearing some of the comments, especially from the people behind me who actually had some who didn't quite enjoy it as much as I did. It just reminded me that this isn't this is trial and effort. This takes time. We have elected officials; they don't always get it right, but they try. And what I saw that night was 2 council members that took the time to come out to the community. And even though their format didn't quite hit the mark for the community members that were there, they actually did try, and they stuck around and they tried to make a difference. And I think that's what counts. So I really did appreciate that. And I'm going to take that as a segue to remind people that ballots have arrived, and please remember to vote. And that's all I have.
Right. And I have nothing to report. With that, we'll move on to presentations and information, and we're going to go with item A, the 2025-26 English Learner Services Update.
Good evening. So as we get the PowerPoint loaded, I'm going to share with you a little bit about what you're going to see in the PowerPoint. In the beginning of the PowerPoint, I'm going to share with you some information about 24-25 numbers as the school dashboard and the LP, which is the English Language Proficiency measure, improvement measure. That's on the dashboard will be coming out, I think it's tomorrow, or is it today? I think it's tomorrow. It's coming out tomorrow. And that data will be based on these numbers, the first numbers I show you in this report. And then we're going to work into looking at some of this 25-26 school year and what things are looking like so far in 25-26 in terms of who our English learners are and the breakdown of them throughout the district. So to start with, this is our 24-25 data in terms of our English learner enrollment. This slide shows you in percentages what that enrollment looks like and at what grade levels. I want to share with you a little bit. Let's see, does this pointer work? No. So the top column there is our total enrollment. That's everybody in the district. 55% of our students are actually English only. That's the only language in the home. Another 4% of those students took the initial LPAC and scored at the highest level on that initial screener. And so they're considered what we call IFAP, or initial fluent. So they also fit in with our English only students. So 59% of our students are considered English. 34.6% are English learners at various levels. And of the English learners from the prior year, we were able to reclassify 3.6% of them. That 2.4 to be determined, those are students that are enrolled in TK. We do not give the assessment in TK. So they indicated on their home language survey that they have a language other than English. In kindergarten, we'll give them that initial screener to determine if they're actually English learners or IFET. What does that look like in numbers? This is the breakdown by numbers for the district. And you can see it's pretty consistent. We have a little bubble. Let me go back one. It's easier to see the bubble. We have a little bit of a bubble of English learners in the middle grades there in third and fourth, but it's just, first grade. We have a bubble in first grade of English learners, but overall it's pretty consistent across the grade levels. We actually have 24 different languages represented in the Robla School District. 19 of those languages are very small populations of students, less than 8 students with that language. And this is with a student count of about 1,894 students. 655 students have a home language, which is 35% other than English. And of those English learners, 111 of them, 17%, have less than 3 years in a U.S. school. So they're new and have the immigrant status. The top 5 languages in the district are on the right there, and as you can see, Spanish is by far the most common language in the district, with 70% of our English learners speaking Spanish, with Hmong second, and then Russian and Ukrainian following. For our 25-26 enrollment trends, we are up slightly in the number of English learners this year from last year, about another 11 students so far. And our immigrant count has gone down slightly to 90 students, and that's because some of the students that we have are still here, but they've been here more than 3 years now. They've been in school more than 3 years. When you look at the breakdown of the students throughout the district, I wanted to share that it's these pie graphs are hard to read, but they're hard to read because it represents how many different languages are at every school site. So what we'll find is that across the district, Spanish is by far the dominant language. But for example, when you look at something like Bell Avenue, they have 44 Hmong speaking students, where that number is very small at Glenwood, but of course the Spanish-speaking population is quite high at Glenwood. It's actually higher than the English-speaking population. Main Avenue has a pretty good splattering, but all the schools have multiple languages of students that come to us that need support in developing their English language skills. One component that we look at in terms of, and will be part of the LP calculation, is our reclassification rate. That's our students that are making progress to the point that we can reclassify them, not consider them English learners, which means they no longer need English language development. And we follow them for 4 years after they're reclassified. And I apologize because I thought I had percentages on the right side here, but I'll talk about that a little bit. The reclassification process is actually set by the California Department of Education, The only component that we have any really kind of control over is the comparison of basic skills for English-only students. Currently, we're using the CASP in ELA for grades 3 through 6, and then we use our benchmark phonics fluency surveys in the lower grades. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because we are in differentiated assessment for our long-term English learners, meaning we have too many kids that are not reclassifying by the time they've been here for 6 years. And one of the conversations about that, because multiple districts throughout the state have been identified since that was just put on the dashboard last year. And one of the things that we looked at is, like, are we setting the bar too high on the basic skills assessment? So I did some research, because they said, we say 3 standard met. They need to be level 3 standard met in ELA on the CASP assessment. And there was some conversation at the county level is that setting the bar too high. So I did some research and looked at, well, how close are kids and how many kids that were level 4 on one. That's the LPAC assessment, English Language Proficiency Assessment. How many of them were close on the CASP? And if we lowered the bar a little bit to maybe the top 1/3 of level 2 on the CASP, would we be able to reclassify? And of the 40 that were potential, it only made a difference for 1. So all the rest were below the top 1/3 of level 2. And I philosophically have a hard time saying standard nearly met is good enough. If the standard is supposed to be the standard, then they should be able to reach the standard as well. Which tells me you have to work on our integrated component of ELD, or English Language Development. On the right side is the number of students that were reclassified last year at each school site, and you'll see some big discrepancies, but really the only discrepancy is Robla Elementary and Taylor Street. Bell Avenue had about 100 students, so that's about 2%. Glenwood, that 12 is actually about 3% of their population. Main Avenue was also close to 100 students, so that's about 2%. But Robla and Taylor were more than 100 students, somewhere between the 100 and 145 of those two schools. So they actually had a little higher reclassification rate. And so that's one of the conversations that we're going to have. I'm sharing this presentation with the EL teachers tomorrow at our EL meeting. And that's one of the conversations that we're going to have is say, like, why do you think they were able to reclassify more kids in the upper grades? Because more of these kids were in the upper grades than we were across the others. But overall, about 6%, which has been pretty standard for us. We've been as low as 3%. Never been more than about 8% in terms of the amount that we reclassify. Part of that, again, is because it generally takes 5 to 7 years to learn a language, and that's if they start in kindergarten, we have them for 7 years. So most reclassifications don't start till about 5th grade, and more of them are happening in middle school. So in terms of the English language assessment, the initial assessment is a screener. It's a slightly shorter assessment. All students that have a home language indicated on their home language survey other than English do need to take this screener. It's only given once. We screened 106 last year, and we screened 125. So again, that's some of the uptick in our numbers of English learners. Majority of those students are kindergartners that we screen. The summative assessment is assessment given every single year until they are reclassified. And again, we see a slight uptick in the number that are currently projected, just at 667 students compared to our 655 that we tested last year. So our English learner population is going up. And that the number of languages, in most of my career, it hovered between 19 and 20 languages, and now we're at 24 different languages. The top figure up here is the ethnicity enrollment of our students, and the bottom is the ethnicity enrollment of the students who take the summative LPAC. Again, indicating that, again, majority being Hispanic students, but that's still only 65% of the students that we give the LPAC assessment to. The last board meeting, there was a conversation about the change in white students' performance on the CASP. If you look here, the enrollment of white students is 11.6%, but 7% of those students have a home language other than English, and so they are English learners. So this is a new component on the dashboard that the state is looking at students that are at risk, which are students that are not making adequate progress, meaning they're going up one of 6 levels on the LPAC assessment. So the LPAC has 4 levels, but level 2 and level 3 are broken up into high and low, giving it 6. So you can, if you're going from low 2 to high 2, you've made adequate progress. This is the percentage for this school year of our students that are sitting at risk, and the percentage of students that are long-term English learners by school site. And again, even though the number of discrepancies are there, there's not a huge difference in the number of students, by when you look at percentage-wise by school site. Again, it's interesting on this though because Taylor has 22% that are at risk, and yet they had some of the highest reclassification numbers. So that's kind of an interesting thing to share with my EL teachers and have a conversation about. So what's happening in the Robla district to support our English learners? We're part of the LTEL Long-Term English Learner Network with the Sacramento County Office of Education. This is a network of districts that meet. We're meeting 5 times a year. This year there are 5 full-day meetings. Each district brings a team to these meetings to work through the science of improvement and to put in place many PDSA cycles or Plan, Do, Study, Act cycles. Our team consists of our 5 EL teachers from each site and the assistant principals from each site, with the exception of Bell Avenue, where the principal herself is on the committee instead of the assistant principal. The goal that we have set in our current year in this committee for our current PDSA cycle, meaning what we're looking at is we're looking at signs of improvement. Where do we see we need to make adjustments to see growth? One of the things that we really saw was the writing scores on the LPAC were very low across the grade levels. And so we're looking at addressing writing, and we're starting with 3rd grade. So again, part of this LTEL network is talking about how do you make big change by making small increments of change. So initially we're putting writing in all the grade levels across every school and designated ELD. And when we talked about this at the network, one of the things they said is like the implementation of that, the following that, the ironing out the issues when you try to go big is much harder than if you start with one school site, one grade level, and work out the issues before you push it out to other grade levels. So that's where we are right now. So what we implemented in our first cycle is we're just saying we would like every 3rd grade teacher to ensure that writing happens every day during designated ELD. Didn't give them much more direction than that. We gave them 8 different strategies of ways to implement some writing into that period. We asked that the whole designated ELD period not become writing, but it be an oral conversation that also worked in some component of writing. It can be a ticket out the door where the students just write a sentence. It can be sentence frames where they're filling in sentence frames, depending on the level of the students in that designated group. And we're asking them to implement it 5 days a week. So we just went through our first PDSA cycle and interviewed the teachers, the 3rd grade teachers, to find out how it's going, how many strategies are they implementing, how many days a week are they actually getting writing in. And what we're finding is it varies from week to week, but generally it's at least 3 days, but not very often 5 days. So that's the next step in our conversation. Why are they not able to do it for 5 days? And after doing this piece of a cycle, it's become more apparent to me like why the county is saying do it on a smaller scale before you edge it out. Because maybe asking for 5 days is too much. Maybe there's other things that are happening. There's a reason why they can't do it for 5 days, right? So that's where we are in this cycle of formative assessment.
Question.
Mhm.
Why are you starting in third grade?
The reason we're targeting third grade is because in third grade is when they take the CASP. And as Mr. Caff said in his presentation, some of the students aren't writing enough to actually be able to be scored on the CASP. So the issue with the writing is not only just with our English learners, but it's with our English-only students as well. And so since third grade is the first year that they take the CASP at the end of the year, and because we're trying to get more than just single word writing, we're trying to get moving to sentences and then eventually paragraphs, we thought third grade would be a great grade to start at.
Well, I get that, and I guess I'm curious. It seems that if you start earlier, well, because you said it takes 5 to 7 years to learn a language. If you start in third grade, then that's like 8th grade and beyond. Why not, if you start earlier, like kindergarten or first grade, that you wouldn't expect better results by third grade and on?
So our goal is to spread it both directions from third grade. So though we're starting with third grade, the rationale to choose third grade to start with is because of the importance of getting writing for the CASP. But we also starting with third grade to iron out the implementation issues of this improvement cycle, of this improvement change idea, and then we'll push it that it goes both directions, both lower and higher. The other thing that we talked about was we wanted to start day one, right when school started. Kindergarten and first grade have a lot more of the kind of getting ready in their seats type things that are happening, and that we thought that it would be difficult for those two grades to just dive right into writing in their designated ELD. They're probably doing or should be doing more actual just oral components during designated ELD, and then writing would come next. So hopefully we're not going to wait a whole year before we push it out past third. That's why we're doing these little mini things to be able, a shorter cycle, so that we can implement bigger and stronger throughout by the end of the year. That was our thought process. Okay. Some of the other things that are happening around English Learner and English Learner Services is the Marzano strategies that we're implementing across the district in terms of best first teaching. A lot of the strategies are best first teaching for English learners. And so that component is called integrated ELD. So there's a match. It's not like we're trying to do two separate things. What's necessary for English learners is good practices for English-only students as well, right? We all learn to speak before we learn to write. And so a lot of the strategies that are in the Marzano strategies are also recommended when you just look like if somebody's writing towards English learners. We're reviewing the LPAC data. We've already reviewed who our long-term English learners are, who our at-risk students are. All EL teachers have a list of the students specifically who they are, so we can target interventions, what we call second dose, for those students to build their English language skills. So then with the hope and the intention that once they build their English language skills, they're going to be more successful in the classroom that's taught in English and understanding subject matter in English. Our bilingual community outreach assistants work each day with students, so they're like bilingual tutors. They support core instruction, supporting the students in the primary language to help the students understand the concepts, the vocabulary, the core, the material, science or history, or trying to read a story that's talking about taking a skiff down a river and explaining some of that language in the primary language so that they can better understand the story in English. We've purchased some newcomer Chromebooks. These Chromebooks are checked out through the library, so as we get new students who have no English background, who are scoring novice on that first assessment, They can check out a Chromebook, and we have a program called Lexi English in which they can practice their English skills in Lexia in that English learning program. That program we chose specifically because it's based on the ELD standards. It was written by teachers on the California designated, or the California ELD standards. So that's why we're using that program compared to Duolingo or Rosetta Stone or any of those. It has a nice platform also for teachers to follow along how students are doing. It gives an assessment in the beginning to tell where students should start, and it has extended lessons that teachers can pull and do with the students from what they see is happening on the program. We also have our librarians, have our libraries open 3 extra hours a week with the hopes of being able to get our families to come in. We have Chromebooks set aside just for the families. They too can go on some of the English learning programs. They can use it if they need to do a job application. They need to fill out our Parent Square application or our educational benefits form, whatever it might be. We have those Chromebooks available to them. And we've been building our bilingual library materials in the library as well, and talk with families about reading in any language is reading and is supporting students. And so trying to supply more books to the families so they can read in their primary language, which it's been a challenge trying to get some of these other languages because a lot of publishers are not putting them in paperback. A lot of the books are online. But we just recently at our PAC-DLAC shared with our parents about how to access the Sacramento County libraries. All of our students have what's called like an e-library card, an account through the district, and the majority of bilingual books can be found in the e-format, and so that's one way that they can access some of those books that we can't get in paper. And that's it.
Any questions? Now, I know that historically at least I felt like we had a pretty good rate in terms of students testing out of EL. Mm-hmm. And you're saying now though that have those numbers gone down, or maybe were our standards was our measurement a little off?
No, I think we're pretty standard when I look at an elementary district to an elementary district. So, for example, I believe last year when I presented on the program, I looked at Anaheim Elementary District because they have a very similar population to us. Mm-hmm. And when I look at Anaheim, we're very similar to Anaheim. Okay. So that 6% seems low, but it's really not low in terms of an elementary district. The thing that is high, though, is the number that are LTEL, right? So that means we don't seem like we're low compared to, say, for example, Anaheim, but we're getting kids at kindergarten and we're not getting them there by 6th grade.
Okay.
That is an issue. So, you know, if you compare us to another district, we don't seem low, but when you look at those LTELs, why are they not reclassifying? That tells us we are low because we shouldn't have those kids here after 6 and 7 years that aren't reclassified.
Mm-hmm. And have we been able to identify why they're not reclassifying?
It's such a complicated picture. Mm-hmm. I mean, of course, we always have to look at what is our first instruction. Are mm-hmm. they getting the supports they need? Are they getting that vocabulary building? Those they're called a language lesson that you do while you're teaching in the classroom, and then the quality of what does our ELD look like. So that's why in this LTEL network, why we're looking at, okay, what's happening in our designated? Is our designated ELD strong enough? Are we really giving the kids what they need during designated ELT? So we're trying to standardize the instruction during designated ELD, because it might be that, you know, I'm teaching designated ELD and I'm spending more time rereading the story from ELA. Mm-hmm. The teacher next to me is spending more time having the students turn and talk and discuss the story compared to just reading the story. So we're trying to standardize those practices so then we can say, okay, look what happens, and that's with the writing. We want to be able to say, hey, look, we targeted 3rd grade. We improved the amount of writing that we do, that we have teachers that are doing it at least 3 days a week. And now when we look at our scores, because we have a goal of decreasing the number of students that are in level 1. So that means they're moving up to 2 or 3. And increasing the number of students that are moving to level 4, meaning they're ready for reclassification. We have about, I think I counted about, from this last summative assessment, it was close to 60 students that were level 4, but they weren't meeting the criteria on the CASP. So they met criteria 1, they accomplished their language abilities, but they haven't accomplished their English only, their peer group specific in the ELA subject matter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really big component for us. And again, that's a little bit of why we're like, well, if we know the CASP is saying that the writing scores are low, then maybe that's where we also should be focusing.
Mm-hmm. Now, I also noticed at Glenwood, it's the only school where we actually have more English learners than we do English only. I'm assuming that's in part because of the DLI program.
In part.
Have we found, because one concern I have is that one of our goals with that was to make sure that we tried to get as close to, English learners and English only. We want to try to have it as equal as possible. It seems like, once again, it's largely skewed towards English language learners. How's our reclassification rate going? Do we think, I guess the question is being a part of the DLI program either slowing down, speeding up, or having no impact on the classification of those English language learners who are participating in that program?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we've had a lot of team meetings about the DLI program. Because if the DLI program is a strong program and it's following the model, there's 2 different models. There's the 50-50 model and there's the 90-10 model. Robla uses the 90-10 model. And what that means is if you're following that modeling, you're ensuring that when you hit, say, for example, 2nd grade, you're spending 70% of the time in Spanish, but you're spending 30% of that time in English, and you're starting what are called transfer lessons, where you're transferring the skills that you learned in Spanish to read into English. Do we have fidelity in that? The way that our numbers are, we're questioning, we're asking teachers, this doesn't look like we're having fidelity, because all the research shows that if you do a program with fidelity, your students should be outperforming other students. If you look at the standard model across the state, for the most part, of the pull-out program. Designated ELD for 30 minutes is a pull-out program. It is by far not the most effective model. The dual language is the more effective model.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of why the former superintendent, Torlikson, why he had a 2030 initiative of every school district, at least 30% of the state of California has dual language immersion programs. Because we know that's the better model, and we know that's what California's population is. The challenge is getting teachers who can teach in a dual language program. We were fortunate in that we've been able to get our teachers, but that COVID period actually played a role in some of the kids that we still have, like our 6th graders. They were first graders or kindergartners? I just looked at them. I can't remember now. But in any case, we still have some of those kiddos left over that had some really broken years. That was hard enough when you're teaching in one language, but when you're trying to teach in 2 languages on Zoom, and you only have the kids for 30 minutes to an hour on a Zoom, it impacted not only the instruction, but also then when we came back, because we were building our program. So we only had K1, and then as we had that year that we were hybrid, that's when we added our 2nd grade. So 3 very crucial years on foundational literacy. And then we came back and we added 3rd grade. And in the building process, there's a lot of communication that has to happen to ensure that you have a through line in how you're teaching. And what that means is that, for example, if I'm teaching math in 4th grade in Spanish, I need to make sure that by 5th grade, when I'm at 4th grade, you're 50-50. When I get to 5th grade, I should be teaching math in English so that as a student, I'm getting a balance. I'm learning in both languages, but I'm learning the subject matter. And we struggled with that because the teachers hadn't met, that we had a period where it was a little bit of a free-for-all, to be honest with you. And Dr. Rodriguez and I have been working over the last couple of years to really hone that down and really hone down the minutes. And what are you teaching? This is your number of minutes that are supposed to be in English. What is being taught in that number of minutes? And we can't just say that because enrichment is, your enrichment teacher only speaks English, that can't be the only minutes in English, because that's not going to build any of the core curriculum understanding. The other piece that we're looking at is we haven't fully put in place that we should, and we're going to do it this year. Fourth grade, for example, when they take, actually even with third grade, when they take the math assessment, the CASP math assessment, we should have Spanish directions and English directions turned on, because it's a math assessment. It's not a can you read the problem, it's can you do the problem, right? So if the student is stronger in Spanish and then we're giving them directions only in English, we could be missing out on their knowledge base. So we're going to turn that on. So there's little things that we know we haven't got right yet that we're working on to try to get our DLI program to have that type of numbers that we should see.
Yeah, that like I said, that's a concern. Just like I said, I'm a believer in the DLI program. I just want to make sure that we're not hindering our English language learners by not making sure that they are reclassifying within an appropriate period of time because of the way in which we're teaching. So I just want to make sure that we're conscious of that, and it sounds like that's something that you're already in the midst of discussing and working on.
Yeah, and the other side of that is, are we teaching our English only Spanish? You know, the whole intent is to learn Spanish, right? So again, do we have the right assessments in place to ensure that they are learning Spanish? You had mentioned that you thought that the DLI program wasn't balanced in terms of English only.
Well, I know because there's like 272 English learners and about 200 English only.
Yeah, so Glenwood has always been our larger Spanish-speaking population. That community around Glenwood is primarily Spanish-speaking community. So even in our EO strand at Glenwood, about half the population is Spanish. They're just not in the DLI program.
Okay.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking about like these assessments and wondering if there are supplemental assessments or other things that we're doing to kind of measure success instead of looking at, just the CASP or just the LPAC. Like, are there other assessments that we are doing to kind of map or track our like internal progress? Because
Yeah. So we do have some internal assessments. We have something that we call the ELFA, the English Language Formative Assessment. It's based out of Wonders. It mirrors some of the assessment, the LPAC assessment. What the activity is that they look at 4 pictures. It's a 4-picture narrative, and they're supposed to tell a story and follow through that picture. And then there's a rubric that's set to go with how well did they tell that story, how much vocabulary did they use, how much detail. So we took those, and those are given the 2 trimesters that the students aren't taking the LPAC. And the reason I say the 2 trimesters is because we can start giving the LPAC in February. So we usually start with 6th grade in February because we're trying to get kids reclassified before they leave. So we want the results back. We've made some alterations where if we have some kids that we know are like, I don't know if they're quite ready. Some 6th graders, we might hold off till May to give them more time to build their English skills and then test them. But generally, we start with the 6th grade. So if they're taking the assessment in February, that's the middle trimester. So they wouldn't give the alpha in February because they took the LPAC. That type of thing is on the LPAC. They would take the alpha again, though, then the 3rd trimester. So some grade levels are taken at trimester 1 and 2, and some are taken at 1 and 3. That also we have an ELD report card that if you're an English learner, teachers are required to fill out an English language development report card. That formative assessment is one component they use for that report card, and that component is to ensure that they are looking and listening. They're incorporating true hearing students speak the language compared to just looking at like, oh, well, you know, she talks with her friends in class, which sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't talk at all in class. So it was our way of saying you have to at least twice be one-on-one and really listen to a child for a couple of minutes to see how they can tell a story. We give that now in Spanish in the DLI program for the same purpose, but flip it to Spanish and listen to them in Spanish.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to move on to consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Now on to action items. Item A, approve 0.75 FTE 6-hour instructional assistant 1 early childhood positions.
Moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Yes, this year we opened 2 new transitional kindergarten classes, 1 additional DLI and 1 at Taylor Elementary. And with the new student to staff requirement, TK classes have a 10 student to 1 adult staff requirement. And all the classes at transitional kindergarten are over 20, which requires, actually they're almost all full except for 1 space, which requires an additional adult. And so these 5 6-hour aides are to ensure that all transitional kindergartens, 3 at Bell and 1 at Taylor, have at least 2 adults. So it's actually 1 aide at the 3 classes at Bell and then 2 for the classes at Taylor. The 2 DLI classes are under the 20 enrollment, so they have 1 teacher and 1 instructional aide.
Any discussion or debate? Hearing none, we move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item B, approve and adopt authorizing signature authority on documents transmitted to County Superintendent of Schools, Resolution number 935. Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
This is just transferring the information from Mr. Castillo to Mr. Martin.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, approve facilities master plan development contract with Hickey and Associates and Hickey.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion?
We have a public comment, and then I will respond.
Okay.
All right, so the public comment comes from Maria Smith. Hello, I'm wondering about the process used to determine who should be awarded the facilities master plan development contract for the district and who was involved. We were told last year that certain process would be followed for an RFP for all projects contracts over a certain threshold. Was the process followed for this contract? And if so, who was part of the committee and determined to award this contract to, and what other bidders were considered for this project? What criteria was used to determine the qualification of Hickey Associates and Hickey, and how were they used to compare them to other bidders? I'm also interested in what other contracts have been awarded to Hickey Associates and Hickey, or other companies their associates are directly connected to.
Okay, so for the facilities master plan, we are I'm recommending a contract to have a 5-year facilities master plan to meet our requirements for Prop 2. We currently do not have a facilities master plan that meets all requirements for Prop 2. We did not issue an RFP in collaboration with Mr. Castillo, he was in the CBO position. We looked for 3 proposals. We looked at a proposal or a program from the company that was recommended by SSDA, which is a Small School District Association, and this program was an online program with the assistance of AI. That program would require that consultant to receive some information from our current staff. So our staff would have to provide the information regarding like the deferred maintenance plans or the inventory for them to create the plan. The other program was also a consultant, And their proposal was for another abbreviated plan, but would require our staff to provide the information to complete the program. Hickey Associates and Hickey is a comprehensive plan where they will do all the work to complete the 19 components that are required for Prop 2. So they would be doing the work to complete the deferred maintenance plan. They would be going to all the facilities and doing all the facilities and everything that meets the 19 requirements. What was it? What other contracts do they have? They have only one additional contract, and that is a facilities consultant to the district. We currently do not have a facilities director on staff, and we also don't have the staff that can conduct what was needed to complete a deferred maintenance plans or inventory or the requirements to complete a 5-year facility master plan to meet all Prop 2 requirements. Did I answer? Okay.
Right. And I was work in the past that had been done, or was in the realm that would have been done by CFW, who declined to renew their contract with us.
That is correct.
Yes.
And the last plan that CFW had provided, right, did not meet Prop 2 because Prop 2 had not even passed at that time.
You know, one of the challenges, just to speak to this, one of the challenges with finding contractors working in this area is that we've done a lot of our major projects already. So most of the stuff we're doing is smaller projects. And a lot of these construction management firms, they like the big projects because the big projects pay big money. And unfortunately, small projects in small districts don't pay a whole lot of money. You know, I will say that Mr. Hickey, our first experience here at Robla with Mr. Hickey was working with CFW. And he played a significant role in the management area of helping to keep projects on time and making sure that, and looking out for the district. I have confidence in Hickey Associates and Hickey when it comes to dealing with our facilities. And now I know that is there also a time factor in this in terms of why we wouldn't have put it out for an RFP.
The original idea was to put out an RFP, and that did not happen. You know, we got 3 proposals. We can put it out for an RFP, but it would delay the process. It would take a few months to go through the formal process and review it. And then that would delay us, and I'm going to say, in being in line to apply or qualify for Prop 2 funding.
Mm-hmm. And that line will be filling up fast.
Correct. I'm sure you're aware at the last November meeting, there were several districts that passed bonds that would be eligible.
I just have two comments. One, is there a plan to hire or find a facilities manager for the district? Because that seems to be one challenge that we're facing right now. And then my other comment or question is like what like I said, I sit here and I like approve all the contracts and stuff like that, but sometimes I don't know what happens after they're approved. And so what's the like a follow-up or the accountability process?
Sure. After our main project, main is our biggest project. Part of the facilities master plan will identify what are the needs of the district, right? One that would be, I would say, designated as a facilities project, and one that would be qualify under deferred maintenance. Right now, we are very fortunate. We can complete some projects under deferred maintenance as they come up, but in terms of having the board make a decision on prioritizing deferred maintenance plans and facilities. So once we receive like the draft or the plan, we would have a facilities workshop because you will understand which pieces would be classified as facilities where we're looking at our facilities funds. I don't know what resource that is. And then what we could use as deferred maintenance, right? I recognize that the last facilities workshop, we identified projects like, I thought it was really important to add classroom space at Taylor Avenue and Glenwood, right? When we had that discussion, probably about a year ago, that was all being considered under our facilities budget, right? But we were able to be creative and look at 2 classrooms at Taylor, which were not in use as classrooms, and evaluate it, and we were actually able to renovate it, and those 2 classrooms right now are in use. So that frees up 2 classroom spaces. And then we were able to take one of the classrooms that was going to be demolished from Main Avenue and put that on Glenwood's property, which opened up a space for our ETK class, right? And then one of the biggest things also was schools fields, right? And then we were able to, use different fundings for 3 fields at Bell, Glenwood, and Taylor. So we do have to come back and have a facilities workshop, knowing, like, here are the projects that that could be, used for facilities funds, and these projects for deferred maintenance. And yes, so going back to after our big main project, right, as we engage in what next steps, I probably will recommend having a full-time facilities person. We haven't had one here. I do believe having one on-site, on-employee here 5 days a week, full-time, really would be more efficient and cost-effective.
What would be the timeline for that?
After we have the workshop to decide what future projects that we would be engaging in, right? So if 5 years from now, right, we were going to go for a bond, and we did that, I would highly advise that we have a facilities person on site versus using a consultant firm for the program management. We might solicit a firm for the project, but not for the program. So our current project management company, right, is overseeing all aspects of the Bell. But one of the things that Mr. Hickey is overseeing now with his consultant contracts is the projects that were in place before Mr. Castillo left, right? And that is finishing up our shade structures, right? Making sure that some of the pieces or some of the projects at our preschool will finish up. And then providing consulting with me and Mr. Martin regarding Maine.
And you said that the RFP process didn't happen. Can you talk a little bit about why it didn't happen?
In consultation with Mr. Castillo, initially we were thinking, should we go for RFP, but we really were, I'm going to say, concerned regarding the timeline, right? Part of Prop 2, one of the things I had heard in some of the, superintendent's council meetings is Prop 2 money is out there, right? And one of the things that SSDA is advocating for is holding the portion designated for small school districts and not allocating that until November, because small school districts like us would not normally have a 5-year facility master plan. There are small school districts that are just one building, right? K adult. And so they would normally not have a 5-year facilities master plan that would meet all requirements for Prop 2. So they would be at a disadvantage. So I know we were advocating for the November date. So in terms of RFP, Mr. Castillo and I talked, if we had gotten 3 proposals, could we look at the proposals, or do we need to do an RFP, right? Well, the RFP didn't happen, and we could have considered it, but it would push us out a couple months from now.
And the proposals that did come in, how did they come in?
Price-wise, or just what? How did
We reached out to them.
Mr. Castillo? Okay. So Mr. Castillo had reached out to a couple that he was aware of, and then we were both on calls regarding the one for SSDA because SSDA price point was, very attractive, right? But when you look at it, their program was really generated from AI, but it included having conversations, multiple conversations, but getting the data. Well, we don't have staff. We would have to give them information on a deferred maintenance plan. We don't have staff to do it, to write up a deferred maintenance plan. They would need the inventory. We don't have staff to do the complete, district inventory. So, and the other program was abbreviated as well and would require input from our current staff that we don't have.
Mm-hmm.
We do have another public.
Okay.
I just wrote down a note.
Okay.
I want to know if this falls under Regulation 331, which requires an RFP process for anything over $15,000, because it sort of seems like it should, and I would say that even if it didn't, if you considered having an RFP process, it's really frustrating after what happened in the spring, where the parents of the district requested more transparency, and another opportunity to have transparency, the district is choosing not to. That is very, very frustrating, and it feels like when you promised us that that would not happen again, it is happening again. And I also want to say I had public comments on other parts of the consent agenda that were not read out loud. I put them in online ahead of time. And one of them was sort of relating to this idea that the district seems to be approving contracts after they've already started. The contract that was on the agenda for Hazel Health had a start date back in June. There was a contract that was approved for, I don't know if it's the same company, but it's for the same Hickey, for Mr. Hickey, one of Mr. Hickey's entities, that was effective September 1st, but it was approved on September 11th. So I was trying to figure out why is the district, or why is the board approving these contracts after their start date? Because that also feels like a lack of transparency, because it's our understanding that these contracts shouldn't be effective until after they've been approved. So in the other comment I had, I wanted to know if these other companies had been paid prior to their contract being approved at a board meeting, because that also doesn't feel transparent. Even if they're just accidents, it's difficult for parents who are here or rewatching these to know what's going on and understanding the trail of money that's happening in our district, especially when the budget meeting was not too long ago and we learned all about those things. And now, whether people are in person or online, they're trying to watch and follow and see what happens. And it does not feel like the promises that were made back in the spring are being upheld right now. Thank you.
Can I make some comments?
Yes, please.
Okay. Most of the contracts in consent are recurring contracts every year, right? And so Hazel Health would start July 1st as a July 1 to a June 30th, right?
Why isn't it on like a May contract, a May 14th?
Correct. No, I absolutely understand that. We did not receive it, right? Even though the contract starts July, it would say July 1, it really should say maybe August 13th at the beginning of the school year, right? But one, we didn't receive it in time. Two, I believe we had one board meeting in August, right? And then three, no, they are not paid. No contract is paid before the board approves it, right? So part of the timeliness of some contracts are the dates of our board meeting and when we did get contracts, right? So is it Hazel Health? Okay. But you referred to, maybe the September, you referred to a September contract for Mr. Hickey for the extension of his consulting contract? Yes.
Extension was not written in there.
Yes.
It didn't look like it was an extension.
Right.
And again, these
Yeah.
are things that if it is, it would be better for the public to see that. And if these contracts need to be adjusted, maybe they should be adjusted before they're being approved, right? If you're saying that the date should be July 1, it says June 2nd. So it's, when you are an outside person who's not in some of these meetings that you're trying to be, or you're just a new parent in the district, it does not look transparent. It's difficult to follow. And it looks like these contracts are being approved after their start date. And it doesn't make sense that a district wouldn't go back to that company and say, please edit the dates, he cannot approve this until it has a date after the board meeting that it starts on.
We can look at that.
I think that's a fair comment. It's fair critique. Any additional discussions, comments?
For this particular one, can you, because I like these to be educational, this contract is for $125,000, and it's a 5-year facility master plan at $110, and facilities management consulting fit report for $15. Can you talk a little bit about those actual two items?
I'll share as much as I can regarding facilities, right? So part of the facilities master plan is having a plan for each of our sites, each of our school sites. And then the FIT tool is facilities inspection tool. Thank you. So that is a requirement for the master plan. So, I'm sorry, the contract is because we have to have a plan for each of the sites. And it's 5 sites, or you can say 6, but we include preschool as part of Robla campus, right? And then you'll hear part of our Williams visit. There is a FIT piece that's part of the report, but this is a comprehensive FIT report that will be part of the plan.
Okay.
Yes.
I have another question too. Again, just like for educational purposes, because I don't know, is $110,000 standard for facilities master plan? Is that pretty standard? And maybe you would be able to answer that question.
I would say it's fair and accurate, if not a little lower than others I've seen in other districts. I've seen the contracts come in highest. No, I'm sorry. I was just saying that I would say that amount is fair, if not maybe a little lower than other districts I've seen or worked in. I've worked in districts where a similar contract has come in for probably between $150,000 and $200,000. Now, again, that's a little larger district, but not much larger. So, I mean, I would say it's a very fair amount. If that's what you're asking, I would say it's a very fair amount.
Would you agree?
I do. I looked at other districts, and took their facilities master plan total amount cost and divided by the number of facilities that they have in their district. And this per site is lower than a couple. So I'd say even if it's lower, it's still fair.
The question was raised whether or not this was above the threshold required for an RFP. Is it?
So I will say that I'm going to give an answer based on the limited information I have in facilities, right? Not every item has to go for an RFP. You can solicit 3 bids, right? And that would be the requirement. It's not a threshold of like 15,000. A 15,000 threshold right now is the general rule if we are awarding contracts that the board has to approve, right? There are some districts where there are higher thresholds that we can, like me as the superintendent and Mr. Moon as the CPO can approve contracts without board approval, right? But any contract over 15,000, the board definitely has to approve, right? And we actually are looking at our policies because on our service agreement, it shows any contract, after 5,000 needs board approval. So the RFP, why we chose to go with the RFP for the ELOP program is because we were looking at millions of dollars, right? So, did we follow a process where you can solicit 3, which is appropriate? The answer is yes. So, but I will check if it falls under 3311. I will report back to that.
And then I'll just add this last comment too, that maybe, because I don't understand like all the thresholds and all the numbers and so maybe there's an opportunity for us to create some sort of standard or a policy that we follow no matter what, if it's $1, if it's $10 million, but it's just so that there is some consistency and some equity and some transparency for everybody moving forward. And I know that's a lot of work on you all. It's a lot of work on us to try to read it and understand it as well. But I think that it's worth it for transparency purposes and for educational purposes and for just plain out equity, right? To make things fair across the board. So.
Well, we are already going to look at our board policies and administrative regulations regarding contracts, because just the thought of the 15,000 is it board policy? Local, what is it?
Local.
No. There's a threshold of 15,000, and I'm not sure if that's regulation or ed code, but local decisions can change it, either increase it or above it. But I know that in one of our service agreement, it says any contract over 5,000 goes to the board. So.
Would it be okay for me to show her that the public comment that she had entered for Hazel Health did not come through, so she was not purposely ignored on it?
I received an email that it went through.
It's not on our thing though, so we can't see it.
What about the one about the board minutes?
The board minutes?
Yeah, what was uploaded was not minutes, it was an agenda from August, and then for the last several months, it has not been minutes uploaded to the minutes section. It's either been an agenda.
Okay. I can go back.
For the last several months, there has not been minutes uploaded to the minutes section. It has only been either an agenda or blank. And so I finally realized that when I was trying to look at some past minutes, and so I wanted to know why that was happening, because one time seems an accident, two is a coincidence, but this seems like a pattern, and that also seems to fall in line with this lack of transparency, because it is in the bylaws that you need to post the minutes.
You are correct. And I know at the beginning of the year, we were also including a link to get it, so I will look into that.
Any additional?
Well, yes. So, just your question. And I know that we're spending a lot of time on this, but I do appreciate. I'm sorry, I didn't catch you. So I appreciate Sabrina's efforts to come and talk to us because we've been trying to get people to engage with us. And I was thinking about something you said earlier, a bit about transparency and about how it seemed like we weren't really engaging in the full transparency that we had promised before, especially with things like the contracts and the date changes. And we'll definitely work on that. But I think the main thing to take home from that is that there is not an effort to not be transparent. And sometimes it seems kind of strange that we have things like the date changes and stuff, but sometimes we do things to make sure that that functionality continues and that there isn't a lack of service or so. So when things like that happen, it's not that we're trying not to be transparent or there is some kind of chicanery or anything going on. Sometimes it really is just maintaining functionality. So I appreciate you definitely coming in, and I also ask that, or say that there are other ways of communicating with us, and if you're not getting a result from something like our interactions here through Gamut, do contact us. Whether it's a board member or the superintendent directly, or others, do contact us. We want to make sure that you're getting the information that you need.
Is there any additional comment or debate on this specific item?
And with this specific item, yes, we have been spending a lot of time on this, and I'm definitely not a fan of Mr. Hickey and the problems that have come up in the past. So that being said, I do want to note that there's a lot of scrutiny that goes into these decisions, particularly with this organization. And so I want that to be known that there's a lot of scrutiny here.
Any additional discussion or debate?
question is should this be postponed until the next meeting until we can determine if it should have gone out for RFP under Regulation 3311? Or at least maybe be tentatively approved pending review and to see that it does not follow that? Because you said you were going to report back at a later meeting.
And that is an excellent question. I want to ask our president this question because he has experience with California's governance. What are the repercussions of us postponing this decision and Prop 2 funding?
It puts the entire process back an additional month, which basically means right now districts, like for example, at the last election, multiple districts throughout the state passed bonds, which means that they're now working on getting in position to get in line to receive funds. The way it works is once you're eligible and once you're in line, then you're the first likely ones to receive funds. The challenge is the longer you wait, the greater likelihood that you wind up getting the money even later. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of one of those things I'd say that it's kind of like you want to get in line as soon as you possibly can. I'm not opposed to the idea. In fact, I like the idea of amending the motion such that as long as we do meet requirements for what's required for an RFP. I don't know exactly how I would word that. But I do like that idea. That way, in the event that we were required to do an RFP or go out for bids, then, we would then probably have to turn around and then meet that requirement. But it would only be approved then tentatively based on that.
Mm-hmm. When you say that we would get that the funds would be delayed, is there a risk of not getting the funds?
Well, what would happen is if the money runs out, then you wait until there's another statewide bond issue.
That's what I mean.
Yes. So yes, there is a chance the money could run out.
Okay.
Okay. Would that be a correct statement? Yeah.
The longer you wait to get fined, the less chance there is. The longer you wait to get in line, the greater the chance that there may not be money for you when your time to get to the front of the line comes.
Especially if we're talking about setting aside money specifically for small districts. Trust me, there will be a whole lot of competition for that small district school money. And that line in particular we don't want to be last in line for.
And does this bond money, well, I'm asking you for historic knowledge, does this bond money tend to run out?
Bond
Or
money?
does this money tend to run out?
Always does.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's first come, first served.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Don't know. I heard what you said. Don't quite know how to put that into action.
Can you add public comments to it after the board meeting? So would there be a way for us to tentatively approve this, and then once you figure out if it meets the threshold, you can go in under this and add the public comment that yes, it did meet, or it was done correctly?
I don't think that you would need. I don't think that you would need to do that. I think if you did it tentatively and then as a function,
to be more transparent to the community.
Well, that would.
It was looked into, and then there's a response saying it was done correctly. So that way, say if it goes into effect, Sabrina, correct, can look at it the same line and see like, okay, they did follow through, because her big thing is about transparency.
I would probably say the best way to do that would be as a part of the superintendent's report. That would be my suggestion. But I would defer to the superintendent on that.
I'm not certain about commenting on if we can put comments afterwards. I do want, I'm open, I can do a superintendent report. I just want to read the first line, like I said, the very little information we have on facilities, of 3311, which is our board regulation. The district shall advertise for competitive bids when any public project contract involves an expenditure or $15,000 or more. Public project means construction, reconstruction, erection, alteration, renovation, improvement, painting, repainting, demolition, and repair work involving a district-owned, lease, or operated facility. This plan is not, it's a plan to see if we were, so if we were going to do works.
It's like
Yes,
two
yes,
lines
yes.
after that, but I think it falls under administrative. A little instead of three examples.
Okay, let's see, I'll just read the next. The district shall also advertise for competitive when a contract exceeds the amount specified in law as annually adjusted by the superintendent of public instruction for any of the following: Public Contract Code 2111. I'd have to look at 2111. The purchase of equipment, materials, or supplies to be furnished, sold, or leased to the district. Services not including construction services or special services and advice in accounting, financial, legal, or administrative matters. Repairs that are not a public contract, including maintenance. Is that what you're wondering, if it falls into that?
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I do not feel I am in a position to answer questions regarding Public Contract Code 2111. So I do not have that facilities. I can absolutely look into that and get some information.
So I would,
But if I may say that, I would not have recommended going through this process on my own if I didn't consult with Mr. Castillo, right? Or is this something we could do? So just for transparency, right? I would not do an RFP if I was required to do an RFP if there are special services that we were required to do a contract, like, for example, the contracts that we have for our special ed department, right? We bring them all to the board because they're all over 15,000, but those are special services. I wouldn't know if that would require an RFP. So, just for transparency.
So one of the things that's important to note is because we approve a contract does not mean that we've entered into a contract. So if we approve the contract today and we say, with this, once again, with the stipulation, and I think that there's enough enough comment from board members that if after doing the research it's deemed that we should have gone to either an RFP or to a bidding process, then obviously we wouldn't sign that contract and we would go forward into the legally required status. And with the desire that at our next board meeting that you would be able to report back during your report what you found out. So I'm assuming it's either going to be that we were not required to do so by law, and or number two, we were required and we're in the process of making that happen.
Yes.
Okay. All right, is there any additional discussion or debate?
No, just to make sure I have it right in my brain, is that two things that we will take into consideration moving forward is that we come up with some sort of standardized policy, like moving forward, so we won't enter into these challenges again. And then there will be some sort of follow-up check-in point in the case that this contract and other contracts are approved.
Great.
And I'll just make one last comment. So hopefully came out one last comment. I get the timeliness of this and the fact that we want to make sure that we get money for the district. We want to make sure we save money for the district. And I understand. I get the fact that a delay may cost us money. So I understand the importance of this of moving forward.
Any additional discussion or debate? Hearing none, we move forward to a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Section 7, board member requests for future agenda items or reports. Trustee Devine?
Nothing at this time.
Trustee Cardona?
Nothing in the stack.
Trustee Hamilton Starks?
I have a thought, but I'm not sure right now. So nothing at this time.
Okay. Trustee Barnes?
I don't have a request for a report, but I did have a comment. Ramon, would it be possible for you to connect with Sabrina about an update on our minutes? Okay.
That's it. And I have nothing. So with that, this meeting is adjourned.